all elite. Because I can't even call it wrestling anymore. Look at this clown. Look at this clown.
You were there, Tommy.
He looked. I called him a pencil neck. Look, his head and hair look like an eraser. I'm like, he literally looks like a pencil. And Tony, if your neck hurts that bad, why are you turning your head, you jackass? Oh my God.
I can cut a promo, baby. I can sit right there if you want a Dusty Rhodes promo. That's right, Daddy. I've wined and dined with kings and queens. I feasted on alley and pork and beans, Daddy, if you will. I can do an ultimate.
Ric Flair.
A little bit of flair. Look at that, man.
10 pounds of gold, baby.
Look at that belt, bro. Look at that robe, more importantly. Now that's a robe.
Yeah. Dave LaGreca, that is a robe.
Yes.
Not that crap that you have on. That
Fuck
is
Dave
a
LaGreca.
robe. Thank you.
Woo! Let's go. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Yankee Rebel Wrestlecast, and I am Rebel Brian. Yankee Tommy is in the house. Hope everybody is having a good day. Hopefully you're still drunk on that SummerSlam beautiness that we got a chance to be able to look at last night. I know.
How could you not be? Our tribal chief has finally returned.
Yes.
Goosebumps. And an updated music.
Yes.
What a beautiful way to end the night.
Man, I honestly enjoyed it more than WrestleMania. And this card was hot from start to finish. Applaud WWE for not only that, but changing 4 titles.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty hot show from the start. And, I mean, they kicked us off with Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley for the Women's World title.
Oh.
And, I mean, hey, if you want to call us Nostradamus, you can. Because we pretty much predicted what was going to happen. Not in this match, but a bunch of the other ones. And was it sweet.
Do this to you.
Okay.
I gotta do this to you.
Oh. Guys, if you're listening to this on the pod, somebody made a dating profile for Rhea
Tinder
Ripley.
profile. Let's go. Rhea Ripley's now single.
Oh, it's beautiful. That whole thing, the way they pulled that off was beautiful. And I'm just like, all right, this is just what I predicted. This is going to start the end of the Judgment Day.
Yes.
And they couldn't have started the night off better because this match led into the world title match, which I thought was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Just the way that all flowed, man. I thought it was awesome.
In the words of the I Love Lucy TV show, Dominic, you got some splaining to do.
Monday night is going to be en fuego.
Yes.
It's going to be so good. You know, got a new world heavyweight champion in Gunther, which we'll talk about. We got still your women's world champion, Liv Morgan.
Yes.
But Dirty Dom's got some splaining to do.
I'm not even mad about it.
No, and I don't even think Finn has to explain anything at this point. Because Finn is, I mean, he's justifiably, had his beef. And I'm just glad to see that I feel like the Prince is back.
Yes.
The Finn Balor from NXT, the second go around, is back.
I could not agree more. And here's the thing: you don't grab Finn Balor by the shirt and be able to give a little bit of aggression, because he's not going to put up with that.
No, but just the way this match set up what was to come later, I thought was beautiful.
Yes.
Like, like it was, like you said, better honestly than WrestleMania. And
Yeah.
WrestleMania was amazing. Both nights were amazing, but just the card, like we talked about, Slammiversary was loaded, top to bottom,
Loaded.
great matches, great stories, and it capped off with the biggest return of the year. So I mean, I can't say enough about what they done, and I mean, I applaud this match because this match kicked it off. And you want a show to kick off to get everyone riled up and going, and this match surely did it.
Can we talk about Rhea Ripley dislocating her shoulder and then putting it back in on the announce table?
Badass. That's badass. And you saw Liv, she's like, oh fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
like,
it's literally one of the, like, my wife was absolutely grossed out. And
as
you
we're
could tell at the end, it was a little bruised. You could tell at the end of the match.
yeah.
And I mean, it just goes to show that the show must go on regardless of what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, depending on how bad. I mean, I don't think Rhea would be out for long. Hopefully, it doesn't require any surgery. I mean, if she popped it back in, maybe some rehab. But it almost makes me beg the question: do you think that Liv is a little lazy in the ring, a little lackadaisical? Because it's the second time she's potentially injured Rhea Ripley
Yeah.
in less than 6 months. Um, so I mean, do we even throw that in there? Is that even a thing, or is it just happenstance?
I think, with, especially if you're starting a show and you're setting the tone for the night, I think sometimes those emotions and that fuel can get to the point where you're like, man, I got to go hard, and sometimes I think things can happen that, especially if you're starting out a show. I mean, let's look at the old NXT where O'Reilly and Fish would start off a show, man, and that would create the rest of the night,
Yep.
because you knew that when they came out, it was going to be a banger match.
True. Yeah. I mean, it just could be coincidence. It's just both times Rhea's been injured was with Liv. So I just me being me, I just had to at least ask that question because I mean it is relevant, but nonetheless, Liv Morgan still your women's
Still,
world champion with her Daddy Dom.
Daddy Dom. And
Oh
I
boy,
like I said, I can't even be mad at him.
no,
I can't even be mad at him.
no. And how can you be mad at this? The new
No.
Intercontinental Champion, Braun Breaker.
Well, here's the way I look at it, is that, again, we talked last week that two matches that was going to be the last opportunity. And this was one of the matches with Braun Breaker against Sami Zayn. Now, I had a great conversation yesterday with a huge wrestling fan as we were up in Cincinnati yesterday, and he said that he hoped that Braun Breaker didn't win because he felt that Chad Gable should have been the champion and held the title for a while. And I'm like, but why? Because this guy right here, that if you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, this guy is carrying you into the new era. So I don't know, like, this opportunity was his last opportunity to get a strap.
Yeah, and not to mention Chad Gable, by WWE standards, that's old history. He's not even involved in this at all. So I mean, I would have agreed with you a couple months back.
Yeah.
Coming off of WrestleMania, I would have totally agreed with you that Chad Gable deserved to be the champion. But we're since past that. Braun Breaker's been entrenched in the Intercontinental Championship,
And it makes no sense for Gable given he's being chased by the Wyatt Six. So
Yeah.
Braun Breaker totally deserved it. And like we had mentioned, and you just said, this was honestly probably his last chance to go after this title right now before he would have to kind of rebuild himself back up again. And props to them for letting this happen, because you're not letting a guy who's red hot and one of the futures of this company go without a title for too long, because he's just different. And when you see someone who's just different like that and is such a standard bearer for where you want the company to go with intensity, physicality, with Netflix coming up here in January, he's one of the perfect poster childs for that era,
Let me
because
let
he's
me
going to
ask you
give you.
this. Let me ask you this. Did we see a start of the new era last night? Because there was some wordy dirds last night, man, and Dom flipped off the crowd and all kinds of stuff, man. I mean, are we starting to see that transition into a attitude-esque type WWE now?
Yeah, and if you watch the press conference last night, Triple H, I'm pretty sure indicated as much if you watched it, saying that like this was, SummerSlam was the end of an era. So essentially promoting the end of the PG era in WWE, especially with, Bad Blood coming up in October. That alone signifies to me that if they're having a Bad Blood pay-per-view, we're going to
Yes.
have blood back. It just goes to show that they're really starting to inkling that way. Um, and once Netflix starts in January, switch that, just a snap of the finger, the landscape has changed. So it's a perfect time to get this starting to get on the road to WrestleMania, because that road to WrestleMania is going to be unfiltered, uncensored, everything like that. So if you start to get that ball rolling now, it's going to be a seamless transition for everybody else. That's not going to take some getting used to.
Also, do you think that WWE has a problem with trying to make Sami Zayn look stronger than what he actually is? Because if you saw the start of the match, Sami Zayn come out just actually balls to the wall and came out. Braun Breaker had a couple ring post situations, and then of course at the end you made Braun Breaker look super strong. But I'm not sure why they would make Sami Zayn look so just dominant against a guy
Yeah,
like Braun Breaker.
yeah. I mean, Sami Zayn alone is a good worker. We've both said that. We liked him as El
Yeah,
Generico. He's good in the ring. Character wise, not so much. Like, he really hasn't been anything since he was in the Bloodline. That was probably some of his best work he's done, and has kind of been wishy washy since then.
yeah,
I don't know why they feel the need to push him so much, given that the only thing people, in my opinion, are behind is his song, which is part of it. But other than that, there's really, to me, no redeeming qualities as, a wrestling fan that I see in Sami Zayn, because character's
what's
off.
next for him? What's next for Sami Zayn?
Honestly, I think it would be best if he went to NXT. I think if he went to NXT, which which sounds bad, but hey, I mean, you have a guy who was once the heart and soul of NXT. Like, that was his moniker. He wore it as a badge of honor. And maybe he can go down there and rebrand himself and get mixed in with some of the newer talent and whatnot, and maybe that'll be good for him. But the main roster right now has so much youth and exuberance and young talent, and I feel like he's just kind of standing in the way of some people getting opportunities I feel like they deserve. And, like Baron Corbin did a stint. Like, no one's above doing it. Like, people
Yeah,
have done it. I just think right now, what's next for him is maybe to take a step back, go down there, maybe figure out something different to do character wise, and um, try to come back maybe a little more entertaining. I don't know. What do you think? Because it's hard for me to come up with something besides just going to
There's
NXT for a little
there's
bit.
only there's only two options. One of them NXT, which you're correct on. The other one is getting lost in the mix of the mid card. That's basically because I don't see Sammy coming up and facing Gunther for the title. I don't see him going after anybody else. I don't even really see a rematch taking place on this particular situation.
No, because maybe you could push it like, hey, like let's get this over quick with the Bash at Berlin that they announced August 31st. Maybe you just have that quick rematch. The trilogy's over. Breaker gets the win, and Sammy goes somewhere else. Maybe you
Yeah.
do that, which they might do. But yeah, after that, I don't really know where you throw him in, unless you plan on throwing him in the Bloodline, in which you're gonna
That
have
yeah, that's a good point.
on because Sammy was a part of the original, and with Roman back now, which we'll talk more about later, it just opens up that possibility. So that is another one that they could do, but I honestly, I honestly don't know, man.
Let's jump into the CM Punk and Drew McIntyre match because this match was interesting to me. I don't know why, but it was very interesting and weird. I can't say that it wasn't weird because one, you've got Seth Rollins, which is the basically hater of these two guys. I mean, absolutely hates both of them with everything that is in him. And then you've got this huge rivalry in the middle of the ring. But how big of a part did Seth Rollins make with this match?
I mean, early on, I thought he was entertaining. Um, given the stuff that he was doing with sitting on the rope, letting them play, like, hey, you know what, have fun. I mean, he did it to both guys. It was entertaining, but towards the end, I mean, he didn't really do much. I mean, Drew low blowed Punk with a kick to the junk. The thing with the bracelet, I thought was a little too overdone. I get going for it, but CM Punk being a veteran of the sport that he is, to have him be that much off of his game, I don't think was a great look. Um, I mean, sure, like if he goes for it, yeah, but like now we're making center of this thing. He has my bracelet, essentially. And I'm like, guys who hate each other that much, the fact that we're literally fighting over a bracelet at this point, playing, hot potatoes,
Yeah.
it just didn't do anything for me, and I thought the match could have went a different direction and ended differently.
Well, the big thing for
Because
me
now, like,
is
where does
how
Seth go?
many.
Because like he didn't really influence the
Yeah,
decision one way or the other. McIntyre won.
I
So
think the biggest part of this
I mean, with like Seth
is
now, it's like where does he go? Because McIntyre is essentially continuing with Punk.
I think that Seth Rollins missed some major pinfalls. Of course, after the GTS that Punk delivered to McIntyre, I think that we're going to see a Punk versus Seth Rollins rivalry moving forward.
Yeah, that's quite possible. Honestly think that given McIntyre took Punk's bracelet again, makes me think that maybe further, maybe into Bad Blood. Because you've already put so much in already that. But I definitely think that Seth might be intertwined with this going forward, or maybe he could pivot to Gunther because they had a little teasing before WrestleMania when Gunther was kind of head for the title and still had the IC title. So that's put another way that
Pivot,
they could go
pivot.
about it.
It's especially when you're moving into the Berlin PLE. I think that we do have some opportunity there to be able to create either a Seth and CM Punk situation, or some maybe even produce it into a triple threat. So I think that could be a possibility as well. I mean, we could see a triple threat between these guys, and maybe even a number one contenders match for Gunther's world title. So again, Drew McIntyre, winner of the CM Punk match.
Big man. It's tough, but they kind of left it open. I guess we'll kind of see what happens on Monday because that'll give us all we need to know on that subject.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. And moving into one of my favorite matches of the night, and that is the Logan Paul versus LA Knight match, which was great. I got to give Logan Paul a little bit of credit because that high spot off the top rope was absolutely gorgeous.
It was, and I was thinking the
And
same thing. Like as much as I hate this guy, as much as I hate him, he pulled that off, and it looked amazing. So props to him on that.
And of course, MGK coming out along with the Prime cronies, and needless to say, do we remember that MGK got power bombed by Kevin Owens? So he's been through some stuff in WWE, and so of course they were trying to use the brass knuckles, which actually connected a little bit on LA Knight, but LA Knight, of course, getting the finish and becoming the new United States champion. But again, this is another match that was a last opportunity for LA Knight to get this opportunity and become world champion with the US title. So, I mean, do you feel this was his last opportunity?
Yeah, and we had kind of talked about that for the past couple months about just him getting opportunity after opportunity with, world title matches, U.S. title matches, Money in the Banks, Royal Rumbles, all this stuff, and it just wasn't going his way. It was just evident to me that this being the second biggest PLE of the year, the biggest party of the summer, if he doesn't come out as U.S. champion after this, to me, it significantly derails any momentum that he was carrying because he was one super, super hot last year, has kind of slowly kind of maintained it, but gone down ever so slightly since then. To me, this was a must win, and he wins, and now he can just carry this title into the newer era that we're going to be entering, and I'm excited to see him on the mic because him, not so much uncensored unless he moves over to Raw, but just seeing a little more ability to freely speak without as much restriction, I think is going to be big time money to see, and I'm excited for what they have planned for him.
Yeah, I'm just happy that he finally won a strap, and now we can get great promos with him as champion, which I think is going to take him to a different height in his wrestling career. And I'm actually very excited to see who his next rivalry would be with. So, and again,
Dummy,
another
yeah.
match I don't think is going to get that's going to get much of a rematch. I mean, it could. We could see like a backlash from SummerSlam at Berlin, and which is awesome because we get two PLEs in the same month. But I still see LA Knight holding this title for quite some time.
Yeah, Logan Paul needs to go take care of his legal issues with Prime. That's what he needs to focus on. Um, so honestly, Logan Paul, I don't see him in the picture. Maybe until you start to get the road to WrestleMania. I could probably see him coming around. I see him taking some time off. LA Knight, um, he's got a couple people going for him. He's got Carmelo Hayes. He's got Santos Escobar. So he's got some up and coming talents that are gunning for him that, I feel like are going to just have to wait their turn because this man has waited a while. He's deserved it. And hey, maybe we see some of his TNA gimmick come back. And maybe he starts hosting, the Fact of Life again because I thought those were great segments, and if he
Yes.
can bring that with the WWE production quality and maybe that dummy button, that would I think that'd be hilarious. Or some iteration of it would be awesome.
Yeah, I would love it. But again, LA Knight is your new United States champion, and I could not be happier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump into some major title action here, and that is well, let's jump into Nia and Bailey first. I want to do
Oh.
that.
Oh man.
Um,
I am so glad. I just want to say this. I'm so glad that my fiance wasn't at my cousin's where we were watching this when that Nia match was going on because she might have smacked me. But either way, Nia doing a not so stinky face, highlight of the night. Highlight of the
well,
night for me.
I've of course you know that we both are super pumped because we're both huge Nia Jax fans. The funniest comment of the night with my watch party was my wife said, "How is she going to get out of this outfit now that she's sweated in it?"
If you need assistance, I mean, hey, put that on auction. Whatever I will hand it over. Undry
but
cleaned.
but a decent match. It was a little slow in certain parts of it, but it did show Nia's complete dominance. Of course, we with Tiffany Stratton coming out, we thought that the inevitable was happening, but it was just a ploy to get Bailey to lose her focus on the match. And of course, we saw Nia come out on top and is now the women's champion, which I feel is going to be hard to take the belt off of her.
Yeah, I don't know besides a cash in who you have to put up against her on SmackDown.
Yeah.
Um, like Bailey maybe, gets her rematch either on a SmackDown or maybe at the Bash at Berlin. We'll see like a rematch, which I would assume Nia would take that as well. But beyond that, I mean, you don't really have anybody that's on her level, really. Like
No.
I don't consider Naomi a strong contender. You had Blair Davenport signed with the Unholy Tag Team with Isla Dawn and Alba Fire, so I don't see any of them going for Nia or that they could beat her anyway. It's
Unless Jade
difficult
comes
because,
out.
well, yeah. I mean, Jade and Bianca, I was going to get to them. Um, I don't think Bianca needs to go for that. If anyone's going to take it off of her, I think it will be Jade. I don't know if and when that would happen. Maybe that could be a build up to a PLE, like a major PLE. Because Jade and I think is big money. But yeah, Jerry 1266457 on Twitch just asked, do you think Cody and Roman would run it back for part 3 at War for WrestleMania 41 or in the future? It is possible. However, that all depends on what happens with The Rock when he comes back. Because if you remember, he did tell Cody that he'd be seeing him down the line.
Yeah.
When that is, we don't know. And that's another big domino that, has to fall. Do we have, obviously, the Bloodline Civil War starting? So do I think, given how storylines have been going lately, that that'll happen? I don't think so. Only because in this WWE's era, it's a lot of slow playing, slow burns to get to a big ultimate finish. And I don't think Cody and Roman Part 3 is going to happen by this WrestleMania. I honestly don't know if it'll happen, to be honest with you. I don't know if it needs to happen. I think that story was pretty well told from that perspective. And now you're going to see just all the different branching stories off it. But Brian, what do you think?
I disagree with you, Tommy. I think that Roman has definitely come back to be the head of the table again. And I think that we will definitely see a longevity bloodline storyline. And I could see the bloodline war taking place at Royal Rumble. But I think that inevitably, Roman's other main plan is getting that title back. And I think that we could see definitely a part 3 of Roman versus Cody. And so I've got to admit, I think it could easily happen. And I think that after the bloodline situation and he takes this new bloodline out with whoever he decides to use for his bloodline, I think he's going to get back to that focus of, all right, I need the title again.
Yeah, and not to get too far off topic. I mean, again, I disagree. I think the way they're going is a little bit away from Cody because I think they've done that for 2 years plus. I think right now the focus is going to be eradicating the old bloodline. And let's not forget, Netflix wants the top stars. Roman is the top star in the company. Even without the title, he is the number one guy. I honestly think that at some point he's going to get drafted to Raw whenever this happens. Whether they have it literally on the first time Netflix is on, they have a draft right before Mania. Whenever that is, I think he's eventually going to get moved away from Cody. Because I think Cody's going to carry the title throughout the end of the year. And I just don't know if Roman's going to be on that same show. Roman might be gunning for Gunther at that point. We don't know. It all depends on just so many different variables. And we won't really know the intentions really until Friday night. So a lot of that's just all speculation. But again, Nia Jax, your new women's champion. And might I say this before we switch? I like seeing the homage that literally the bloodline is paying to its ancestors. Since Nia has come back, I've seen more of a Yokozuna like Arsenal from her.
Yeah.
And I think it's fitting for her because she is a bigger girl. Yokozuna was obviously he was built as a sumo wrestler. He was a bigger guy. So I think stylistically it works, and I think she's been doing some of her best work in the ring because of that style change and not being maybe what Vince wanted, being so stiff. She's able to do these different things and divvy it up, and I think it's obviously proved her well, and obviously she's a women's world champion, so that is a
Good
testament as
point.
well.
Do we ever expect any women in the bloodline?
So I had this conversation last night, um, and think, I personally think that it would be a cool twist because you have Naya, who is a part of the bloodline. I think it would be interesting, but then do you have a deep enough women's roster for her to go after currently where she is? Because SmackDown isn't really deep with women. There's some high end talent, but there's not the depth, that the men's had when Roman was champion, head of the table, and he was running through everybody. They might just not want to spread themselves too thin with it, but I still think that she should at least be acknowledged as,
Could we
you
see
know.
Tamina come back and maybe see something happen there? But I think even as a just a presence within the bloodline would be huge, and she could play a major factor, especially in a bloodline rules match, because
Oh
she
yeah,
could beat up most men in the ring.
yeah. She'd have that China effect. She's already entered a Royal Rumble. She's one of the most dominating women we've seen in WWE. Um, I personally think it would add another layer to the bloodline. It would give them more of a legit fact of, like, we're literally covering every division. We're coming for the world title. We're coming for the mid card. We're coming for the women's title. We're coming for the tag. Like, we're here literally to take it all. So I think it'd be cool. Will they do it? Doesn't seem like they will, but I think it would be a cool thing to have. Not to mention, I'm pretty sure they may have signed the the Tonga twins, the female tag team. I think I've seen them backstage NXT and stuff, and they even tweeted this exact photo out. So maybe we'll see.
Let's jump into our two matches, and that of course is the Damian Priest and Gunther match, which to me was one of the hardest hitting matches I've had a chance to see. And from the Finn Balor match to now, we saw Gunther actually bleed, which was a little bit ironic for me because he's usually the one that's making other people bleed due to all the chops. So I think that WWE did a good job on making both of the superstars look strong.
Yeah, I was having a conversation last night with Jake, who's my cousin's husband, and he's he is a brother to me, for lack of a better term. Right now, he is a big wrestling fan, and he and I were having this conversation about both of them, and I just was thinking about Damian Priest specifically, and I'm like, this man gives you like Undertaker like vibes in his style in the ring. He's not so much a striker, as far as using his hands, but he is equally as that with his kicks, because his kicks are on point and they are lethal. And I haven't seen his 24 documentary, and I really want to, because you've seen him develop from being the Archer of Infamy in NXT to what he is now. This man has made me a believer in the last couple months of this man has something. He just needs to really figure out what that is. But the highlight of the night that sticks in my mind when I watched this match was when Finn obviously put Gunther's foot on the rope, and you see, Finn give that side smirk, and then Damian Priest inevitably like looked like the Undertaker when he was choking him with everything he had, and then he went out kind of passing out in a blaze of glory. I thought that was a good spot. That was a
Yeah.
great visual image to give the fans because you saw how raw that emotion was for Damian Priest, literally seeing everything around him crumble and then losing his title. It's just gonna set up that rivalry between Finn and Damian. It's gonna be a one that could probably start off a PLE. It's gonna be highly contested and it's gonna be hot.
Yeah. Do we see a repackaging of people now that the bloodline is, or not the bloodline, but Judgment Day is falling apart? And do we see a repackaging of some of those superstars?
Yeah, I mean, well, like I mentioned, I think Finn's gonna drop the Judgment Day song. I think that might be now exclusively to Damian Priest. I think that'll be his new song. Because he kind of was, the last, like the last man standing, the flag bearer. Finn, I think he'll go back to his Prince from NXT. I think it's going to be that dark, hard hitting, doesn't give a shit about nobody, but getting his title. I think he's going to take that turn, which essentially leaves Carlito. I guess he's nowhere to be found now. JD McDonough, I don't really know what happens to him because he wasn't even involved.
No.
So it's like, I don't know. I mean, Dom's obviously he's gone. He is long gone. Which I think you're going to branch off. Finn will be against Damian. Rhea is going to be against Liv and Dom. And essentially leaves JD and Carlito kind of elsewhere. So I do think it'll be kind of Shield-esque. They all kind of go their own little separate ways and, see it on the road kind of thing.
Do we see McDonough and Carlito going with Finn?
I could see Carlito going with whoever will let him in. JD, he's been a loyal Finn supporter, so I think JD could go with him because really, without the Judgment Day, JD and McDonough I don't think would be on television. So I see him being kind of like a loyal soldier to Finn. Who knows? Maybe with AJ Styles kind of not really being there, maybe Finn brings the Good Brothers along and teams with them again for the first time in years. That would be kind of interesting.
So what do you feel that Gunther is going to be as a champion? Do we see him holding that title as long as he held the IC title?
It's possible. It's hard. What confuses me about the direction of Gunther is they keep mentioning, him, like representing Imperium. And Imperium really hasn't been a thing in a while, because they kicked out Vinci. Kaiser was on his own for a little bit before he got hurt. So, like, is he gonna bring together a new Imperium? Like, I don't understand why they keep bringing it up because it seemed like it's effectively disband in a sense. So, but I definitely see him having a long title reign, definitely a year plus. If they put him in the 600 plus day reign as world champion, honestly wouldn't surprise me. But a lot has to be answered this Monday. I think it'll be one of the most viewed Raws of the year because there's so much speculation as to what's going to happen. And with really him having no direct challenger, no Money in the Bank winner, Damian Priest is effectively going to go against Finn. I don't really know who you put against him right away.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Jerry, we're going to get to your question on the next part. Undisputed Jay asked in chat, now what happens with Finn and JD with them being the tag champions?
Well, Brian, do you want to start with this one?
Well, again, I think that just like I said earlier, I think that Finn and JD and Carlito I could see them having their own little faction. and that creating that is how you keep the tag team titles relevant. You keep JD and Finn together, and then Finn says, "Hey, Damian treated us all like crap. He thought he was the leader of the Judgment Day when actually I was the leader of the Judgment Day," and be able to keep that circle going as they are the tag champs. Now, there's also an opportunity for animosity, and they could lose the titles quickly.
That's true. That's true.
Great questions in our chat today.
Yeah, I mean, I can honestly see them keeping the titles. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, like who do you feel are legit title contenders on Raw? Because I mean, they took the titles off the Awesome Truth, which I don't see as a legit tag team in WWE. Like, who do you realistically see that could take the belts from them?
Well, we're going to get into that on our next segment after we talk SummerSlam. But I've got my picks. But I wouldn't mind, and this is weird, but I wouldn't mind seeing the Creed brothers have the tag titles.
Yeah. Yeah. It might take some maneuvering currently from where they're at, but again, big fan of the Creed brothers. So if you start their new faction with them getting the belts and then Chad Gable eventually getting one, that would be fine with me. But yeah, it'll be very interesting because it's hard to answer these questions when there's so many possibilities right now.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it's literally insane.
So let's get to the elephant in the room, and that is the main event of SummerSlam. And of course, we know that Cody was the winner of the Bloodline Rule match against Solo Sikoa with a little bit of help from our tribal chief,
Roman Reigns.
But talk about a pop.
Dude, I couldn't even hear his music. And when I watched back the clip of him coming back, he has different music. It's tweaked a little bit. Kind of like The Rock used to when he was evolving and getting bigger and bigger, his music would slightly tweak a little bit.
Yeah.
It definitely sounded different. So it'll be interesting.
Let's jump into Jerry's. Let's jump into Jerry's question before we get deep in this. So Tommy, let's jump into Jerry's question before we jump into this match completely. He said, by the way, where do you see the bloodline going? Because Jimmy's daughter, Jay's son, and the Samoan kids are going to be a threat in the future when they grow up. Do we see eventually these kids coming to NXT and we're just going to have a constant bloodline running through the sliding door? I mean, is that a possibility?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's been happening since the 60s and 70s when they first came into the company. It's just been a constant, I feel like every decade we have a new member coming in some capacity. So I definitely think it's possible. I mean, if they choose to go down that path. If they do, they have literally the king's ransom and people that can help them. I mean, you literally got, you got Roman, you got the Usos, you got Rikishi, you got, Tonga Kid, you name it, they have people who can help them train. So
yeah,
if they want to, I could easily see them doing it and being very successful, given their lineage and who they have. Yeah.
So, did Cody look strong last night?
I can't say the word strong. I'll say he looked good, but the big factor in all of this was Jacob Fatu to me. because he's going to be a factor because he's that good.
Yeah.
And they've made him that much of an X factor in everything he's done since. But you saw him do the splash on the Cody on the table and looked to have hurt his leg and wasn't seen in the match the rest of the time, even when Roman came out. Do you think that was a planned spot? Or do you
I
think
do.
that he legit got hurt and they had to kind of change things up a little bit?
I do because you don't want Roman facing Jacob Fatu just yet. You don't want that. You want to be able to focus from a promotion side. You want to focus on mano y mano. You want to be able to see that Roman came out to take care of Solo Sikoa. He did. And now the new bloodline has to go, okay, Roman's back. I didn't win the championship. Now you're going to see that evolving of Solo staying angry, Jacob Fatu, which I went back and watched that, and it just didn't seem to me, unless he just, like you said last night on our call, unless he got a shin stinger or something. That's the only thing I can see. But I think that it was a planned spot. I think that it was to keep him out of the match with Roman coming in.
Yeah, because I was doing the math. I'm like, if you have, Randy and Kevin effectively removing Tamatonga and Tongaloa, you have Jacob, so you're still effectively two members of the bloodline. And then if you have Roman come back, I mean, he's not siding with Cody, but you had to get Jacob out of there somehow and not have Roman directly attack him just yet. Because,
Yeah.
as you just said, he's going after Solo. Because Solo, since he's been gone, has taken it upon himself to be everything that Roman already was. So he's going to handle that first, which then carries back to Jerry's first comment, which is why I don't think you're going to see Roman and Cody right away, because they got some layers of this to go through, because who knows how long it's going to take before Roman starts adding back to his bloodline. But Michael Cole did say something interesting. So he mentioned it was I think the word was the reunion or something of the Roman Empire. So do you think that wording specifically is he's no longer having a bloodline, but he's having an empire? And he's just going to build around that, like himself in that way, and he's going to have the Roman Empire versus the bloodline? Do you think that's possible?
It's interesting. That's an interesting concept. And also my big question about last night was, will we see any of the current new bloodline members go with Roman?
I personally don't think so. The only one I could is Jacob Fatu turning on Solo and joining Roman. But if it all stays the same, at some point you're going to see the Tonga's brother Hikuleo debut. So I think he'll be involved in this somehow. But you can't not have the Usos. To me, you have to have the Usos. And then that last member, I honestly have no idea. But you can't not have the Usos involved in this, given they were the ones who started it.
Think about this. What if Roman does show up on Raw? We've got the Usos. We get Hikuleo. Could we see a Survivor Series match between Raw, SmackDown, but new bloodline and old bloodline?
Yeah, I've been pinging for War Games match for forever. I think that would be awesome to have. I like the concept of Roman coming back on Raw because if you remember, he wasn't in the draft. He withdrew from the draft.
Yeah.
He's technically a free agent, so he could essentially go on Raw and talk to Jay. He could go on SmackDown and deal with Solo until he signs a contract. He's kind of a free agent if they decide to play it that way.
Yeah.
So that essentially gives him the freedom to interact with Jay and still to deal with Solo and still keep that going without pinning him to
Yeah.
one show just yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's actually a really good comment, and I think that we could definitely see. I mean, this bloodline story is long from over. It is
Yeah.
long from over,
Well, yeah.
and I think that we're going to see a resurgence of this storyline now that we have Roman back, because it got a little stagnant. I mean, let's face it, the whole Solo thing. He's hated so much, which, props to Solo for building that heel heat. But it got a little stagnant because, we're getting tired of seeing Cody, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton going through this, getting beat up every week by the bloodline. And now we've got that X factor, which is Roman coming back.
Yeah, and Eric Bischoff made a comment on his podcast that I happened to hear, and he was saying that he thinks it would have been wrong if Roman came back at SummerSlam, but because he thinks it's too soon. And to me, not to say he's out of touch, but if you just think of society today as it is, it's almost kind of like a pressure cooker. A month is like 3-4 months, and all that to say, a month seems like forever nowadays. Yeah. If you go since WrestleMania April, May, June, July, August, you go 4 months, a quarter of a year, that's a lot of time to some people.
Yeah.
So I disagree with him, and Roman coming back at SummerSlam was bad because he's been absent. Their heart has been fond for him for months. They've been chanting for him to come back since the Raw after Mania.
Yeah.
And it's only gotten louder, so I think it's a perfect time. Because in this culture and in wrestling nowadays, people aren't used to having to wait. Now, we've been getting that lately with having to wait and wait and wait, but people just aren't wired like that now.
Yeah. I'll agree with that. Now, I want to jump into a kind of a breaking news situation, and which was a little bit shocking to me to hear about it, but that is the return of the Hardys to WWE. And I saw a report saying that they have met with WWE officials, and they're possibly making another run, which we talked about it before the show. Is this the time frame that the Hardys can make another run for the tag belts and get put in the Hall of Fame at WrestleMania?
Yeah, I think it is the perfect time. I think it makes sense given, they've given everything you can give to the business. They don't have any more to do. They can't be hurt. Even if they just promote newer tag teams and give them a rub, I think that's perfect. And I think, if they were to sign now, they can get a nice little run in, like 8 months, go in the Hall of Fame, and do whatever they want. If they want to, even go to NXT and help train or do whatever, by all means. But I think it would be a perfect way to go out is with the Hall of Fame and with WWE. So I would be down for it.
Yeah, I would too. And I just want the broken gimmick to be able to come back and stay. Now it'd be nice to see the actual Hardy Boys, the regular gimmick, and let's have one more TLC match. But the broken gimmick to me is still so over that it's just so much more fun in my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll be as watered down with Triple H and Power, so I think you'll get and Matt will get more of that creative freedom. So I think them coming now, you might even get to see Brother Nero, because we didn't see Brother Nero. We just saw Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
Back when Vince was in control. So I think anything's, Pandora's box with them can be open. They can do what they want to do, kind of have their own little farewell tour. And
Why 6 possibility?
There's that history. I mean, he was tag champs with Bray.
Yeah,
Was old Woken Matt. So I mean, I could see some mixing in there, and essentially, Uncle Howdy leaving the door open. If you want to come with us, you're welcome because you're family essentially.
because it's not the White Six, it's six, SICKS. So
Yeah,
you could have more than just six members.
true. True, which I
And
think
and
is a
and
confusing part of that is how they worded it. However you interpret it, obviously could be something different. So I definitely think that's a possibility, but we'll see if they end up showing up.
so we're going to jump into TNA now and talk a little bit about the return of one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and that is Matt Cardona. We had the Nick Nemeth versus Mustafa Ali match, which was just a nice match for the TNA World Title. And then we had at the end of the night, we had PCO and Steph DeLander wedding, which we know in professional wrestling, weddings are not a good thing.
No,
And
no, no, no.
so, of course, if you follow the indies, you know that Steph DeLander was Matt Cardona's manager, and they traveled with each other all over the place. And so Matt Cardona shows up. He's like, "Here, I've got a present," and hits PCO, and it's actually a cinder block. And Steph DeLander's like, "What are you doing here? Why are you doing this?" So we have Matt Cardona back in TNA.
I mean, it's good to see him on a upper level promotion for a first time in a while, and the way TNA's been rolling, I think it's a great addition, and he's one of the more underrated superstars of the last decade. Just his all around gimmick that he's completely revamped and is great. So, do we see Cardona slide over to NXT in that open door as Matt Cardona and have some rubs there? I think that's possible.
It's possible, and I would not be against a Ethan Page versus Matt Cardona World Championship match. I
That
would
would
not
that
be
would be
against it.
that would be good.
But
That's some good promos.
since I'm heading to Emergence at the end of the month and got the front row, I wouldn't mind seeing a PCO Matt Cardona match at Emergence. I would be okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, is it me or does Steph DeLander look like the Bride of Frankenstein?
She is because PCO is the TNA Frankenstein, and he comes out and he gets electrocuted at the start of every match,
Yeah,
and
it's
it's just a good gimmick. But Steph DeLander is putting in some of her best work, and it has been so much fun to watch this take hold. And now that you got Matt Cardona in the midst of it with the history that he and Steph DeLander have, I'm like, okay, you got me sucked in. Now we need to figure out what we're going to do with it. Because it's to me, this is going to be a good storyline. This is almost like a Dominic, Liv, and Rhea situation taking place in TNA.
yeah, that's actually a pretty good comparison. I didn't really see it that way.
But it's flip flopped, and instead of it being Dominic, it's Steph DeLander. So,
Yeah.
but also we had a nice first night of the Great American Bash. Just some great matches for NXT. We had the second night taking place on Tuesday on Sci-Fi, which I don't know if you guys saw it last night, but we are getting NXT on the CW. We are getting SmackDown on USA coming in September. I'm like, I didn't think it was going to be that close,
Neither
but
did I.
yeah. So we're starting to see the transition between the television deals and things that are slowly taking place, moving into that better category. Now, USA is a little bit more lenient. could we see a little bit less PG on USA with SmackDown coming in?
Absolutely. With Hunter signaling the end of an era, I think, what they did last night was a nice head start to that. And then after the Bash at Berlin, you're essentially right in that territory of, all right, we got a brand new era. We're on the road to Mania, and we now have some less restrictions all across the board. So it's gonna make creative decisions a lot easier. You're not stuck in that box of PG. And I mean, if the stuff we've seen with Liv Morgan is any indication of what we're gonna see, it's gonna be wide the fuck open.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And also one of the neatest things about NXT on Tuesday night was with our guy, Joe Hendry. He appears, I believe in Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry.
The man who has wrestling on fire.
We are seeing him wrestle in TNA and NXT every week. And he now did his concert on Tuesday night at the Great American Bash, and he now is going to face Gallus on Tuesday at the Great American Bash. So we get Joe Hendry on Thursday nights with TNA Impact. We get him on NXT on Tuesday nights. And this is such a good gimmick. I cannot express it. I feel like every week I'm eventually going to go, do I still believe in Joe Hendry? And it's always yes.
Yeah. So I believe in Joe Hendry so much. And I don't know if you saw, but on Friday at noon Eastern time, they had a limited edition 1 hour drop of a Joe Hendry t-shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees, which I indeed set a timer and I purchased.
I missed
However, I will wear it proudly on the show. Proudly. But yeah, his gimmick is so over. Like I said last week, he is everything that Elias wanted to be, but just couldn't. Like, this is his gimmick. He is so over. And did you hear that he has kind of like a special deal? So, like, with TNA and NXT, I think he's the only one that has it, where he can literally go train at the Performance Center as a TNA talent. He's on Raw. NXT and TNA every single week. He travels, comes as he goes, and he's just freelance, and he can do whatever any indie shows he wants to. This man literally has wrestling by the balls because he is just so good, and he's the only member of the TNA roster to have this type of open relationship. So it's so cool to see.
Do we see Joe Hendry at Royal Rumble? Could you imagine the pop if Joe Hendry is entered in the Royal Rumble?
I hadn't thought that far, but technically NXT superstars can go in the Rumble.
Yes.
If you see Joe Hendry show up at the Royal Rumble, my pants will be off. They're gone. They're gone, I believe.
Undisputed J said, I know here in the UK, which, by the way, thank you for tuning in from the UK. I just got back from the UK in last September, so I love that area, man. They said that they get all the shows on Netflix, but was wondering, do you guys also get them on Netflix? No.
So we get Raw is on the USA Network. SmackDown is on Fox. Every single PLE is on Peacock right now.
You guys still have the network.
Yeah, we're spread literally everywhere. So, how long have you guys had the shows on Netflix? Like, were you guys some of the first ones to get it on Netflix, or has it always been on there? Because curious to hear that.
That maybe the UK is the test run for what's going to take place in the States.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just so excited for 2025 right now, and we still got 4 months of 2024 left that I'm like, just get me there already. I just want to see this already.
Oh. So we get to the bottom of our segment list tonight, and that is AEW. I don't know.
We're the best wrestle, right? We're the best wrestle.
Yeah. Well, if those of you that follow wrestling hardcore, Shane McMahon did meet with Tony Khan, so there could be some hope for AEW.
Yeah. Okay. Undisputed J responded, said, we don't have them yet. It starts in January, but all the network ends for you guys. Oh, that stinks.
Sucks.
I'm glad you've had it for so long. Because it's been a while since I had the network, and I love the network. It was so good.
Network was the greatest thing on the planet.
Literally, and they were dumb to get rid of it, I think, but that was a Vince thing.
Yeah, we start in January as well on Netflix, so let's which is going to be awesome. I mean, it's, to me, if you can go to a streaming service, which of course the rumors that AEW is going to go to Max, which I think will help them to get a broader audience.
Yeah, and I think that's good for wrestling fans in general, because you're only having to pay, less than $10 a month for Max, and you get all the pay-per-views, and hopefully their library too. So that would be interesting to see what the deals are on that. But I think I didn't misread Undisputed J's comment about all the shows, because at the beginning of the year, Netflix is only going to be for Raw, because SmackDown in the States is going to USA, and I don't know how long that contract is. So whenever that's up, I assume they're going to go to Raw as well, but I think they still got some time.
Yeah.
Since they're just now switching to USA in September. But
these TV deals got to be nice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But let's get on to AEW. You and I talked before the show. It was very lackluster. At least in my opinion, it started off really well with the MJF and Will Ospreay segment that led into Ospreay versus Archer. And, obviously MJF, they have to start off with the best thing they got. And, he killed it once again in his promo with Will Ospreay. I think they have really good chemistry. Him and Ospreay do. MJF is literally their MVP.
Absolutely.
And without him, it's tough for me to watch AEW on a weekly basis, just with how things have been going. Because I get the Olympics are on, but Dynamite was down 22.5% in viewers, down 33.4% in the 18 to 49 demographic, and down 2.1 in 18 to 34 demographic. Compared to last year, it was down 31.9% in viewership.
Wow.
43.1% in 18 to 49 and down 32.1% 18 to 34. It had 64,000 in men and 31,000 in women, 18 to 34, 91,000 in men 35 to 49, and 45,000 in women 35 to 49.
Wow.
To start it off, they had 656,000 viewers, and 230,000 of those were in 18 to 49 demographic. By the end of that match, and you had the Kyle Fletcher promo and the Swerve Strickland video, you were down to under 600,000 people watching. So then after that, we obviously go into Chris Jericho promo. You had Willow Nightingale and Statlander. You're down to, it's down another 6,000 to 593,000 viewers. By the end of that match, you actually went up 8,000 to 601,000 viewers. Then you got to the Danielson and Strickland segment. with Danielson and Jeff Jarrett, and then Orange Cassidy, and that whole shebang. By the end of that, you were essentially up to 645,000. So you had your peak. You're starting to go up again. But by the end of the show, you're back under 600,000 again. You're
Yeah.
at 590, which was the lowest of the night. For your
Wow.
main event, which is not what you want to have happen. But this past Wednesday's Dynamite had its second lowest viewership ever in its normal time slot, with the ratings down. So it's just not looking good for AEW as it stands. So I mean, the viewership doesn't get any higher than MJF, which tells you literally all you need to know. It's MJF, then it just starts to trickle downward.
Yeah.
They picked up a little bit, but honestly, it was a little too late.
Which I do want to give props to Undisputed Jay, our friend from the UK. He said it's such a great time to be a wrestling fan, and he said also thank you for this great show. Thank you for tuning in.
Absolutely.
I would love to have so many UK listeners that we just can't maintain ourselves. So thank you, Jay, for being a fan of the show. And it is the greatest time to be a wrestling fan. And Bearded
Absolutely.
Dog said, Liv Morgan, exclamation points. And he is pumped that Liv retained and Daddy Dom picked the right side.
Yeah, Bearded Dog and I have a history of not agreeing with each other. He's a historical shit talker and a pretty good one at that.
Yes, he is.
But Brian, could you do me the honor of putting up my favorite graphic that we put up today, please?
Oh yeah, I will do that just for you, Tommy. And
thank you.
You're so
welcome.
welcome.
I just want him to take a look at greatness, right there. That's all I have to say to him. Is just this right there.
Hey, he did tell me last night that Nia was looking better.
Thank you. Thank you for finally seeing what we've been seeing. You can shake your head all you want to, Bearded Dog. You can shake your head all you want to.
I do want to do this just for him.
They made her look thinner. Her body has nothing to do with it.
Say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry.
Okay, Bearded Dog has said a couple comments saying they made her look thinner.
That's not what he said.
And then he said she looks like she's lost a little weight, which I think she has. I think she's gotten into better shape. She definitely looks good. And I think it's obviously going to do wonders for her anyway. Undisputed Jay with the clapping hand emoji.
Yes, thank you for the Joe Henry clap. Yeah, you're right. He did say that she's lost a little weight. I guess I'm just trying to get his views that she looks good now. So I'm just hoping.
He probably thinks it. He's not going to say it, so that's his way of saying it. Which, hey, I'll take it, because before it was fuck Nia Jax. I don't like him.
I'll take a compliment for Nia Jax from him.
I will take that. I'm not going to complain one bit about that. And yeah, absolutely. I just want to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thank you for being interactive, because that's what we want. We want to hear from you guys. We want to hear your opinions as much as we have ours. We do want to hear from you guys as well. And it's nice to see Undisputed Jay from the UK tuning in.
Yes.
UK fans are historically very passionate. Yep. And we
thanks
love
to Michael
that.
Herlin, Jerry, Bearded Dog, always supporting the podcast and the stream. And
Yeah,
just
man.
you guys are the reason we do this every week.
Yeah, man. And, continue to share us with your relatives, friends, and family. Share the stream. We acknowledge our tribal chief too, Bearded Dog. Roman Reigns has come back.
Uh,
But it's grown so much in the past couple months that we've been doing this, and
yes,
I'm having a blast. I know I can speak for Brian. He's having the time of his life right now. And we just want to keep this growing. So share the stream, share the podcast, give us a like, subscribe, follow, whatever you can do. We have our link tree that we post very frequently. So go on that. We'll have our Printify shop, links to our Patreon. Literally anything you can think of, we have on there. So just support us any way you can and are able to. Literally, anything is appreciated.
yeah, absolutely. And again, just to reiterate, Undisputed J, it is the greatest time to be a wrestling fan. Again, Bearded Dog and I were in Cincinnati yesterday, and I've never met so many wrestling fans in my life. And just the love and just the camaraderie between the wrestling fans and just the talks. It's so good to be a wrestling fan again.
It is. And like Bearded Dog said, if you are even looking for some wrestling cards in particular, since we are a wrestling podcast and a wrestling stream, Sparky Sports Cards, located in Lexington, Kentucky, with our man Rebel B here. He's got a great thing going. Seen a lot of action at the local card shows, and like they said, they were just in Cincinnati. So go on Facebook. We'll share their thing on our Facebook page.
Yep.
They have the link to that as well.
TikTok as well.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, this is our show for the week. We will be back with you on Friday at 7 p.m. And we will be talking basically the backlash from SummerSlam. We'll be talking more NXT with the Great American Bash. We'll be talking TNA Impact. We'll be talking AEW and whatever other breaking news. But stay with us.
Also, I have to announce, if you guys have been tuning in for the past couple months, you remember Rob Sweet, who came on a couple months back. We're going to have an exclusive interview with him this week because EWF is having their biggest show of the year, Death Wish 2, this Saturday, August 10th, which I will be attending. So we'll get an interview with him before the biggest pay-per-view of the year for that promotion. We'll share that all as well with some graphics and whatnot, so you guys are able to look at that as well. But again, love all wrestling. Support all wrestling. We love you guys. Thanks for tuning in again. We will see you this Friday at 7 p.m. on Twitch and YouTube. For Yankee T and Rebel B, peace.
See y'all.